Sixth, sexual injustice. Don't get your back up before you hear me out. I know some are already thinking this will go bad. Some have not even gotten to this point, as there will be those who disagree with my earlier points. Bankers and members of parliament may have stopped listening by now, if they even started in the first place, as this is a threat to their control over you, and they don't want to lose the rewards they get from that control. So, before I go on, that has brought up another warning. If you have the guts to support this, you will be opposed by those in power now. They have lots of money and political power, maybe just enough to shut this down. But I hope, as was proven in Rome, the mob can take back the power. All the money can't win against a nation with one voice. It won't be an easy road. As the author, I'm at the greatest risk. I hope I live long enough to see this through. So, back to sexual injustice. Please keep listening after these next few words, as I will explain. Many read or listen to a few words and make up their minds before listening to the proof. We have 3 natural sexes. Yes, 3. Women, who deserve to be first on this list as they did most of the work in giving us life. Men, and hermaphrodites, a person born with both genitalia. Yes, though it's very rare, we have people walking amongst us born naturally with both sex organs. Then we have other variations. I can hear the zealots clicking their mice to delete this document or leave the page. And again, I'm reading from a written document. Or screwing up the page and throwing it in the bin, if they have a printed version. Oh no, now I have the religious condemning me too. I will go on for the justice of humanity. And yes, I'm more afraid of religious zealots than the bankers and the politicians. These are the ones who make quick decisions to kill any who can bring a rational case that they disagree with. I'm talking of science here, proven fact, and of course, to them, science is a lie of the devil. So anyway, back to the sexes. Along with those 3, we have women born with testosterone in varying levels. They will by nature take on male traits, and men born with female hormones. Neither of these are hermaphrodites, but have a lean towards the other sex by nature of their makeup. I'm sorry for all of you whose bubble I've just burst, and more sorry for those who don't have a bubble but hide behind a solid fortified wall that will never be broken, as they will never be wrong, no matter how much solid evidence you provide. So we have 3 sexes and a rather large grey area between them. If a homosexual says they were born that way, I can't argue it, as their genes may just support their case scientifically. I do know what the Bible says about them, sadly though. The only references I can find in the Bible are that it's an abomination, a sin, and that they should be put to death and certainly won't go to heaven, but to the lake of fire. There are many verses all saying this in one way or another, in both the Old and New Testaments. The Bible considers that there are only 2 sexes and nothing in between. But we know, contrary to those words, there are a lot in between. So, do they have rights? Yes. However, in some cases, and with some vigilant promoters, they've gone too far. there is a desexing move that is growing. People who demand we stop using terms like male, female, he, she, and gender neutralise all. They expect us to use neutral terms, some of which are silly. It's been demanded by some that we replace things like male with sperm giver. I consider this ridiculous. 1. It still separates them from sperm receiver, so it's no different than keeping male as the correct term. 2. It would change the delicate nature of slowly revealing the difference to children, who'd have to ask early in life, what does sperm giver mean, child bearer? As I expect they'd now have to change mum or mother to child bearer. 3. If they use neutral terms like person or even maybe them, language itself would become nonsensical. I'll create a scenario to explain. Let's say two people were walking down one side of a street and two people were walking down the same direction on the other side of the street. Now, coming towards those people was another couple, which was a person and a person. The people shouted something suggestive at the people on the other side of the street, and the person and person were quite upset, as they were a traditional couple who may or may not have been partners, and the people weren't a couple because they showed attraction by what was shouted. We would expect that the people were also not a couple, as they didn't seem to mind, and even though the people were disgusted, the situation was not a problem between the people and the people. Excuse me. Imbalance in equality of sexes should be addressed. However, trying to create equality by making neutral terminology serves as nothing but adding confusion to the issue, and if anything makes it worse. Even if we were to use their suggested terms, we might have this. Two sperm receivers were walking down a street, and walking in the same direction down the other side of the street were two sperm givers. Walking towards the sperm receivers were a sperm receiver and sperm giver couple. The sperm givers shouted out at the sperm receivers, and this upset the sperm giver and sperm receiver couple, but the sperm receivers didn't seem to mind. I could go on. However, I think you'll get the point. In the first case, it is totally nonsensical, and in the second case, it is just adding words that make the conversation a little more difficult, though the identity of the sexes is still clear, at least to an adult. So, changing these terms makes a language more difficult, but still understandable, or nonsensical. I just consider them fools for suggesting such. So, let's look at women's rights, because firstly, I do respect them. They gave us life, if nothing else. They deserve our respect, our honour, and to be treated equally as an absolute minimum. I also respect the rights of the LGBTQI+ community. However, I think that community can go a little bit overboard. Let me start with women's rights. If they do the same job as a man, then they should have the same pay. Now, I've been in the reverse of this situation. I've been in 2 jobs in my life where the pay was not equal. Surprisingly, in both cases, it was women who were getting paid more than men. This is very rare, but it does happen. Commonly, however, I'm aware that men are getting paid more than women in many occupations. Now, if it's not an occupation that requires particular skills of men, as in physical labour, where a man can do more than a woman, then it's unjust and needs to be addressed. Women also have the right to walk down the street without being harassed verbally or in any other way. However, I must include on this particular point that if those women are wearing highly sexually suggestive clothing, then they will draw sexual attention. Again, don't get your back up yet till I explain. I remember quite a few years ago when I was on a busy street and a woman walked down the street wearing very see-through lingerie and nothing else. Of course, she was going to draw a lot of attention from both men and women. If that woman was raped, the offender would get a very minimal sentence. Some judges in this world are so biased they may even let the offender off. This also brings me to judicial situations where judges will be a little unfair to women and in other cases favour them. In a divorce case, it is more often than not that the woman will get the bulk of assets and the time with their children. In this case, the sexual injustice between men and women can benefit women. It is men that have a disadvantage. Now let's look at total sexual equality. I'm not sure many really want this, and certainly not women. In a total sexual equality, you would have to do crazy things like remove the signs in front of toilet doors that say men and women, because that's sexual inequality. That's not treating both sexes exactly the same. Shopping centres would have the right to create a single toilet for both men and women, as there should be no separation between them. Also, this is happening in British schools now. Some schools have removed those signs and they have single gender toilets. They're also teaching very young students to not consider their genitalia and choose which sex they want to be from first entering school. Now, if I was brought up this way, I'd have chosen the opposite sex due to the advantages I saw. Not an attraction to my own sex. I'm very glad this wasn't suggested to me. As I grew older, I found a greater value in being who I am. Small children may notice that Dad is always at work, and when home he has to do the hard work, mowing, fixing things, etc. Where Mum may stay home and do fun things like play with them or choose what they will eat, and the easier things like cooking. A boy may want to grow up to be a mum, not based on their sexuality. They know nothing of that, but based on what they see as lifestyle alone. Should children really make choices like that based on what they see as lifestyle from very limited life experiences? They don't really understand sexuality at such a young early age. What if a situation between a man and a woman who only just met that gets out of control and the environment erupts? Should a judge treat them as equals and say, you could both hit each other, so I'm not going to do anything as you're equal? I believe in women's rights and equality. All I'm saying here is don't let it go too far. Equality can be dangerous. I do believe women should have the right to maintain some protections, and that can only happen if they are considered less than equal in some ways, physically, and protected because of that lack of equality. Let's look at the LGBTQI+ community and their rights. Yes, I believe that they have rights as well. I also believe that in some ways they are already overstepping their rights, and in other ways they are already turning their noses up at the community. I can't give you a percentage of people in the community that are LGBTQI+, so I'm just going to make up one. Let's say that community is 30% of people. Then why is it that it seems to me, at least anyway, that more than 50% of TV shows are geared towards them. It seems that at least 50% of advertising is geared towards them. In this way, they already have an overrepresentation in the community, and yet they still feel the need to go on marches and push their way. I feel like even though they have those rights, and even though I have no real problem with them, I'm just sick and tired of them screaming out for further rights, always having to be front and centre of everything. Also, as far as how they handle their community action goes, I see time and time again that they're pushing themselves upon us. They're beginning to annoy me, at least. I can't speak for you. If I walk past a cafe, I may see a lot of people in groups of different kinds, and many couples again. 70% of those couples may be male and female, and they're quite polite and acting in a normal way. And you can see the love and care in their eyes and the conversation. But when you look at the 30% of LGBTQI plus couples in that cafe, they're touching and kissing each other constantly, and in a way that is so constant they seem to be trying to make it obvious to the entire community. I find constant physical affection in public socially unappealing. More the kissing rather than the touching. To me, it's almost taking touch and kissing in public to a level where I'd maybe even support a ban on all touching and kissing in public. So that community, or to that community, I say, great, you should be who you are and don't be fake. Don't pretend to be someone else, but don't try and push it in people's faces, as they will kick back. People don't like having their nose rubbed in things. If there are ever any anti-PDA laws, I know which community will have caused them. I live in a country that has an annual parade for them. Enough, they have the rights to marry, adopt kids and maintain their lifestyle in any way. The same for others. Fine and well. Maybe there should be an annual straight parade. I'm talking about equality. No more, no less. I'm just saying, when you gain that equality, stop your protests, etc. The LGBTQI plus community has got there. So stop pushing your existence before us, rather than your cause, as you no longer have one. You have the same rights as everyone else. Or you run the risk of backlashes. What do people do when one is unequal? They push their case and gain equality. With women, it's been too slow. But let's look at money between two people, regardless of gender, etc. One gets $20 an hour and the other $25 in the same job. The lower paid one complains and fights for their cause and gets $25. But if they don't stop and the employer gives them $30 to shut them up, and believe me, they still won't shut up, then the other will shout, injustice. I need $30 an hour. The only people hurt now are the employer and still others who are now ready to complain, the customers, as they will have sharp price rises. So now we have everyone, employees, employers and customers complaining. And guess what? History has shown those workers, equal or not, are still not happy. We have just discontent amongst the whole community. So in the case of wages, if you reach the same as the rest, stop. Don't cause a major upset by continuing your claims. Back to the LGBTQI plus community. You have equality now, so stop. Please don't cause anger towards you by seeking more than equality. And don't try to be in our faces. the whole community will get out of order. I don't dislike you, but I'm starting to dislike the in-your-face attitude you display.